You don't know, someday I'll be living in a big old city, and all you're ever gonna be is me. Nah, I'm just kidding, boys and girls. We're not talking about the Taylor Swift song mean. We are talking about mean as in the measures of central tendency. So basically how to represent a group of numbers. So let's go ahead and get started on section 11.1, which is on mean, not the Taylor Swift song. This is going to start on textbook page 809 and go through textbook page 812. As usual, I know it's been a while, so you want to dust off your brains a little bit, and you want to have your colored pencils, your pencil with an eraser, because that is definitely what you want to do the on your own problems with, especially in this section, because there's going to be a lot of calculations and errors actually occur quite often. In addition to that, you probably want to be listening to this with headphones on. You're going to be writing all of your notes and your practice problems in your textbook. And again, like I said, dust off your brain and bring your listening ears. All right, as you can see here, we're looking at textbook page 809, lesson 1. This is on mean, and the first thing says to scan the lesson and predict 2 things you will learn about mean. So go ahead and do that now, scan the lesson, and then I'll let you know what I have here. So the first thing that we came up with is that the mean is the average of the data. So this average is no different than the average of your test scores or the average of all of your homework grades. It's the same concept. The mean is also a single value that summarizes the data. So the word summarizes here is basically just to mean it stands for or it represents. So for instance, you wouldn't have numbers like 50, 52, 56, and 55 and then have a mean or an average of 100. So it would be somewhere in the 50s because this is the number that's supposed to represent the majority of your data. And the essential question that we're working on here is how are the mean, median, and mode helpful in describing data? So the entire purpose of this section is so that we can take information or data, those the numbers, and we can represent them in different ways and figure out which way is the best way to represent the numbers. So now into the real world link, it says Tina and her friends downloaded songs for 6 weeks, as shown in the table. How many total songs were downloaded? So in order to find the total songs, you're just going to add up the number of songs downloaded each week. So off to the side, I've just made a little addition sentence here. So I've got 6 and 4 make 10, 9 and 1 make another 10, so that's 20, and I've got 22. And carry my 2 up here. 2 plus 1 plus 1, 2, 3, 4. So we get 42 songs. That's the total number that were downloaded. Then it says, on average, how many songs did they download each week? So to find the average, we're going to use our total, which we just said was 42. And then we need to divide it by the number of weeks. We can figure out what the number of weeks are just by counting them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to divide that by 6. And then we get our average per week, which is going to be 7. So that's how you're going to find it. Then it says on the number line below, draw an arrow that points to the average. Plot the number of songs downloaded on the number line. So what they're asking us to do first is draw an arrow that points to the average. So the average, we said, and I'm going to stay with pink here so that you can follow along. We said that the average was 7. So we're going to draw an arrow right above the 7. Okay. And then it says draw an arrow that points to the average. Then it says to plot the number of songs downloaded on the number line. So I'm going to switch back to orange and I'm going to plot the number of songs. So what that means is we come back over here to our data and we see we had 12 songs. So we're going to make a little dot, little dot here. We had 6 songs, 10 songs, 9, 4, and 1. Okay, so how far below the average is 1, 4, and 6? How far above the average is 9, 10, and 12? So below the average, let's see. How far below the average is 1? So if the average is 7 and they want to know about 1, it's going to be 6 below the average. 4 is going to be 3 below the average. And 6 is just 1 below the average. And then I'm going to switch colors just so it's not confusing. And then it says how far above the average is 9, 10, and 12. So 9 is going to be 2 above the average. Remember, our average is 7. Okay, you can't forget that's the number we're working with here. So that's 2 because 7 plus 2 is 9. And then they want to know about 10. So that would be obviously 3. And then the last one they're asking about is 12. So that would be 5 above the average.
What is the sum of the distances between the average and the points below the average and above the average? Okay, so what that means is if I add 6 plus 3 plus 1, I get 10. And if I add 2 plus 3 plus 5, I also get 10. That's an interesting fact. Explain why the average is the balance point of the data. All right, so on this explanation, it just says the sum of the difference or differences below and above the average is 10, so they balance. So the explanation for that wasn't my favorite, but I do want you to have it there. So now we're looking at textbook page 810, where you see the key concept and you see the word mean, and then you see some little stick people drawn. Under the key concept, it says, the mean of a data set is the sum of the data divided by the number of pieces of data. It is the balance point for the data set. So when they say balance point, they mean like this. You know, in science class, where you want it to balance. So they mean this is the average. This is where they balance out. So the mean of the data is the sum of the data divided by the number of pieces of data. Okay, so that's very, very important. You want to know exactly how to do that. On the previous page, you found a single number to describe the number of songs downloaded each week. The average or mean summarizes the data using a single number. So you want to go ahead and put a circle around single number. You can find the mean of a set of data shown in different displays, such as pictographs and dot plots. Then it says you can find the mean of a set of data shown in different displays, such as pictographs and dot plots. So we're going to go ahead and look at a couple of those now. Off to the right, though, I want to draw your attention here to including data. Even if a data value is zero, very, very important, it still should be counted in the total number of pieces of data. So this is a very, 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 very important piece of information right here. Many people miss that. Zeros count, we're going to say, okay? Zeros count. So it says find the mean number of representatives for the 4 states shown in the pictograph: Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and Louisiana. So you're going to count the number of figures that you have. And actually, the way that they've done it here is they've taught you how to move them. So if you think of it like pennies instead of these little stick people, then let's say you had all these pennies where they would go, and you're just going to redistribute them so that everything is more even. So what they've done is they've taken this little person right here, and they've moved him down to the bottom, and so on. And it says each state has a mean or average of 8 representatives. The table shows the number of CDs a group of friends bought. Find the mean number of CDs the group bought. So now you want to go ahead and work on this problem on your own, and make sure you pause the video now. Great, welcome back. So the first thing that you probably should have done is add the data values up. So we've got 3, 4, 6, 0, and 2. Notice even though it's 0, and I know that doesn't actually change my sum, notice I did include it as a piece of my data. That's because when I go to add the numbers up at the end to divide them, I know how many numbers there were originally. 3 plus 4 is 7, 8, 9, 10, 15. So I got a total of 15. And I need to divide that by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to divide that by 5. And I get an average or mean number of 3. So you would write 3 right there. Moving along here to textbook page 811, you can see it's got a couple more examples here. So it says dot plots. In a dot plot, individual data values are represented as dots above a number line. So for this step, for this type of problem, you actually have an additional step. They don't give you the list of all of the numbers. You have to write the list of all the numbers based on the dots that you're given. So the dot plot shows the recorded high temperatures for 6 days in Little Rock, Arkansas. Find the mean temperature. So even though this is done for you, I'd still like you to do it out to the right with me now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look over here at my dots right here, and I'm going to see that I have 2 dots on 45. So I'm going to be sure that I list 45 twice. Even though you know in your head maybe 45 plus 45 is 90, I like to list each piece of data separately so that when I go to find out how many pieces of data I have, I don't have to worry about having to go back to the actual plots and see how many dots there are. I can just count the numbers. So 45 and 45, we have another one on 47. We have one on 49, 50, and 52. So before I add, I'm just going to double check really quickly. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots. So yep, I've got all the numbers represented here. So now as you can see, when you add it all up, you get 288. So now we're going to take the 288 which is the sum of all of our data values, and then we're going to count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers to divide by. So then I know that 6 times 4 is 24, 4 left over, that becomes a 48, and 6 times 8 is 48. So now you can see that I got an average or a mean of 48, and remember that's 48 degrees. So your final answer would be 48 degrees here. And again, I know that you see this written already. I'd like you to write it again, please. All right, so now you can see here we've got problem number 3, or example number 3. The dot plot shows the number of runs a baseball team had for each game of a 4-game series. Find the mean number of runs for the series. So I'm going to first underline the word mean because that tells me what to do. And so now I'm going to look and I'm going to go, okay, I've got the data here. I'm going to put them in the box just to make sure that I can fill in the boxes over here, but I'm going to show you what it would look like if I was doing the work. And I would like you to write the same. So I've got the number 1 right here. So I'm going to do 1 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4. And again, I got all those from the dots right there. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now I have 12. And so what they want you to put in the box right here is the 1 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4. Divided by the number of data, well, we have 4 pieces of data. So over here, I would do my 12 divided by 4, and obviously I would get 3. So you'd get 12 divided by 4, and you would get an answer of 3. So the mean number of runs for the series is 3. You want to pause the video now so that you can go ahead and work on B. Okay, B says the dot plot shows the number of books Deanna read each week of a reading challenge. Find the mean number of books she read. So now you are given the dot plots, so you need to make numbers out of those. So we get 1, then we have 3, 3, and 3. Now remember, I listed 3, 3, and 3 because I've got 3 dots there. Now I've got the number 4, and I've got 2 dots there. So I have 4 and 4. So really quickly, before I even start adding, I'm going to make sure I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of information. So I know I counted them all. So then we have 4, 8, 9, and then 3, 6, 9. So 9 plus 9 is 18. So when I add them up, I get 18. And remember, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of data. So you're going to have 18 divided by 6, and you get an average or mean of 3. But keep in mind, you need to tell me what the 3 represents. You can't just write 3 for your answer. You would write your answer as 3 books because that's what you're solving for. You're solving to find out the mean number of books she read, so your answer should say 3 books. All right, so now we're looking at textbook page 812. It says to stop and reflect. The mean is sometimes described as the balance point. Explain below what this means using the data set 2, 2, 3, 8, and 10. So we're going to come back to that in a moment. First, I'm going to go over number 4, and then we will come back to that, or example 4. It says the number of minutes Marielle spent talking on her cell phone each month for the past 5 months were 494, 502, 486, 690, and 478. Excuse me. Suppose the mean for 6 months was 532. So what you have is this missing data piece here, but they also give you the average, and then they give you all the others. So they showed it to you this way, where they said if the mean is 532, okay, that's this 532, the sum of the 6 pieces of data has to be 6 times that, because here's what you need to think about. If you were finding the average, remember you would add all of them up, add all data, and then you would divide by the number of data, number of pieces, we'll say, okay? Whoops. So that's how you want to think of that in terms of words. You want to make sure that you're writing this. So now, when you're working backwards, if you were going to fill in a piece, you would have all of the data added up times the number of pieces to get what it is before you would average it. So I'm going to go ahead and add one more screen here as well. Actually, what I'm going to do is just erase this, and I'm going to start with my equation. So the way they've explained it is wonderful, but I want you to be able to set it up as an equation as well. So what that means is I've got a mean. Let's start with what they gave me. They said that the mean is going to be 532 minutes. That's right here, okay? So on my right side, I'm going to have 532. On my left side, Now forget about the 532 for a second. If I gave you all the numbers that she spoke on her cell phone, then you would add up all the numbers she spoke, all added, right? You don't have to write this part yet because I'm going to end up erasing that top part. And then you would divide it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, correct? So we're going to make that an equation. Now, we don't know what all the numbers are added together because we have that question mark, but we do know what these numbers are added together right here, okay? Those numbers right there, you can add up, and we'll do that off to the side. So now you know that the numbers that they did give you for the 5 out of the 6 months was that added up to 2650. So now I'm going to erase what I wrote here, and I'm going to say, okay, well, it's going to be 2650, which is what I have so far, plus, and I can just call that X if I want to. This right here, we've got X. We don't know how many minutes that is. So now I know how to solve this. I really do. Remember, when we go back to solving equations, you can solve this by multiplying each side by 6. That's what you would want to do first. Cross simplify, and then you are left with 2650 plus X equals whatever 532 times 6 is. So 532 times 6 will give you the 3192. Now I want you to refer back, before we do anything else, I want you to refer back to the method that they showed you here. Notice how I got 3192 right here? Well, that's what they had you do in the very beginning of the problem right here. They said if the mean is 532, then the sum of the 6 pieces of the data must be 532 times 6, or 3,192. So now we know that we have all these added up, plus X is going to equal the 3192. So now, to find it, our last step is simple. We subtract 2650 from each side. That goes away, and we are left with X equals 542 minutes. Okay, so I just showed you a blended version of the example that they showed you, and then also how you would set that up as an equation if you wanted to do it that way. Your homework is going to be textbook page 812, and it would be great if you did 1 through 3, but really 1 through 2 is probably just fine. So 1 through 2 will work just fine for me. Good luck, and I'll see you next time.